Welcome to our third segment of the history of Charlestown, sponsored by the Charlestown Historical Society. This is the sort of a brainchild of the Historical Society under Tom Coots's direction, and our cameraman Rob Marcella, to try to pick up from the 40s up to the present day things that we remember. We don't know everything, but we're trying to get the key points out that everything took place that was enjoyable in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Some of them weren't. But we'd like to keep our segments together, and Tom will be on probably next week with another segment. He'll explain how we pick the people and why we do it. But today, I have a special guest with me, a good friend of mine, probably for over, I'm going to say, it's going to age the two of us, but over 60 years I've known this gentleman. We went to high school together. We played ball hockey together as kids. We hung together in the projects. We both went in the service, but he went in a different time than me. He's a combat veteran of the Vietnam War, and a really good friend of mine, a good friend of Charlestown. I want to thank Tom White for coming on. Tommy,
thanks Billy.
Coming on,
that's
pal.
A nice introduction.
I'd just like to ask you a little self about where you're living now, Tom, and where you were born.
Well, I haven't moved 3 blocks my whole life. I was born on Pleasant Street, then moved to the projects, then the Monument Square when I got married, and then I bought a house on Mount Vernon Street. It turned out to be, I bought it right after the Van Dorn because a good friend of Billy's and I got killed, Joe Boucher, and his mother wanted to get out of the house, and I was lucky enough to buy it, and I've been there for 45 years.
Yeah, I forgot that Joe did live across from me, and besides, it was on that street. Yeah, during the '60s, we covered some of the '40s and the '50s. We're getting into the '60s, and I thought Tommy would be a good guest for the '60s, where he's a combat veteran. Our thing in the '60s was a lot of people weren't concerned about the Vietnam War at the beginning, but Tommy joined the Marine Corps. And he went to Vietnam, and we thought we'd have a veteran on that was a combat veteran of the Vietnam War, so he could tell us a little about what was going on in Charlestown with the families, the wives, the mothers and fathers. Well, our kids, young kids, 17, 18, 19, and 20, were serving in combat. Tell us a little about that time, Tommy.
Well, I was kind of fortunate. I joined the Marine Corps in '64 in January, and a real good friend of mine, growing up, Stevie Driscoll, a week later quit high school and joined the Marines. And I ended up seeing him and Larry Dooley at boot camp. And then I went down to North Carolina and did a med cruise for a year. I came back, and we went to two kids that I went to boot camp with were in my outfit 1-2 in Camp Lejeune. We volunteered to go to Vietnam, and 2 of us came back, but Gene Rutledge from Alabama, he got killed. But a small story was on an operation. Now, I didn't see Stevie for over 2 years, and our colonel got lost, and they sent us out in cliques, go different miles, and I walked into this village with my fire team and myself, and who's in there with Stevie Driscoll, filling up canteens. So we hugged and kissed, and the Vietnamese people just looked at us like we were crazy, but that's a small world. And you talk about the people back home. I was unfortunate enough to get wounded December 19th, '65, and they sent a telegram to my mother, and I heard later that she collapsed, and they thought she had a heart attack, and because it said that my condition was unknown. But I got some shrapnel in the arm, and they evacuated me to Japan. I was in Yokosuka Navy Hospital. I spent 6 weeks there, and then they sent me back to Vietnam to finish my tour. So, and that was a small story because I got wounded December 19th, and I got to Yokosuka on the 22nd of December. And the doctor that interviewed me said, you should have been here yesterday. And I said, well, why is that? Well, we would have sent you home for Christmas. I said, what the hell's a 1 day, on a flight? But they took really good care of me, and I was fortunate enough they could come back. But a lot of my friends never came back. But But the people I know, my mother, was happy. I lost like 30 pounds while we were there for 13 months. And I wasn't a big kid anyhow. I was only 155. I came home about 120. So I looked like a walking dead. But the people in Charlestown really treated us very, very well. In fact, Jake Comer, who was a state adjutant for the American Legion, he was giving his talk, and he said how people, when people come back from Vietnam, that they were treated horrible. And I corrected him. I said, I lived in Charlestown my whole life. The people in Charlestown were fantastic, and they backed all the Vietnam veterans, and now they still do it too. But
yeah, I had the pleasure also knowing one of our very close friends, Mikey Quinn, Lieutenant Mike Quinn, who was killed in Vietnam. His family, I know the families when you guys were away, because I got out in '64, and you guys were going in a couple of years later. And Charlestown at the time was all for the men in Charlestown serving. And the town, how did you find the town, Tom, before you left and when you got home? How were the people?
Well, the people, like we all had little cliques. I mean, the courts and the project have different little things.
Oh yeah,
Sometimes we'd have a little beef
a
little beef with one court against the other court. But,
get out. They didn't do those things.
Yeah, but growing up in Charlestown, I was very fortunate. I spent a lot of time in the boys' club, and I took a cooking school, and I went typing school, and I used to go to summer camp. I think it was like $10 a week, for the project for people. But and then I was very lucky. I played sports like the CYO, thanks to Father Smith, and we made a lot of good friends.
Yeah. And
then I was fortunate enough that by playing hockey, I met Eddie Kennedy, who worked for the Red Sox, and he asked me, do you want to work? And I said, sure. So I worked in a visitors clubhouse in '61, which was the All-Star game. In '62, I went to the Red Sox, and I was the ball boy. And then in '63, I was the bat boy, and did 2 road trips with them. And again, the first time I was ever on an airplane, and it was a great experience.
But well, we used to settle our little differences at the courts. Oh. But I told the people last segment that we did in the '50s and '60s that you could go to any corner and be welcomed at different gangs. But we used to play ball hockey a lot, and that's how we settled a lot of our arguments. Winner wins the argument, That was great. We played in the courts. I remember you used to have your crew. Good bunch of guys, probably a couple of years younger than our crew, but we all sort of meshed together. And I found that '60s to be quite an era. And you went in what, 60?
January '64.
Yeah, and you got home in
January '68.
Yeah, because I remember seeing, God rest his soul, Lieutenant Quinn coming down Bunker Hill Street in his dress uniform, and I had already been out of the service, and I actually saluted him. I was so proud to see that kid from Charlestown. Any kid from Charlestown, when you seen him in the uniform, you almost had tears in your eyes, because they were so young. But I didn't know that we were welcome back. Even the guys that served during the Vietnam War, not in the Vietnam War, but served, Charlestown was a unique town. They did respect and welcome back their veterans compared to most of the country. But then as the '60s were going on, Tom, and you get home, we had a lot of stores and everything, and when we were younger, we used to make a few bucks. You remember what we used to do, making a few bucks back in the '60s and '70s?
Pulling the cart from the old First National.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mother was a cashier on Bunker Hill Street.
We used to fight to wait and get in line.
Yeah.
If you took a lady, the farther you went and the higher the floors, you'd make an extra quarter, I think it was. And the more bundles you had to carry, and then you had to run back down to the First National, get back in the line like a taxi cab and wait your turn again.
Yeah.
Did you ever shoot shine shoes?
Yeah, well, I used to. No, I used to sell newspapers.
All right.
I worked for Conway when I was probably in early teens,
Yeah.
and then I worked for Lenny, who had the Navy Yard. When the Navy Yard bikes come out, we sold papers, and then I used to sell papers at the Boston Garden. So I get into all the hockey games for nothing. So, so I did that for a long, long time.
Still had our perks then, huh?
Yeah. Well, like I say, that the Navy Yard then was just unbelievable, and I think that might have had a thing of me going in the Marine Corps because they were all Marine guys, and they were always good to us.
What was the did you ever hang down City Square at all?
No, I used to. Well, I mean, everybody was through City Square,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, we had to get on and get our sugar combs.
Sugar combs,
you know, so
that was quite the area. I mean, between the 7 or 8 bars that were there, we had a Waldorf, we had Taylor's, Tuttle's, we had bars, we had barber shops. I mean, there was everything on Chelsea Street for such a small street. We had a market, Blackie's Navy store, like I said, a lot of gin mills down there. But, we had the ships were in, too, from the Navy Yard, so we used to have a lot of problems down there.
Well, it was in the Globe at one time that we had the most spas in the world on a 1 mile basis.
That's a claim to fame,
yeah.
huh? Well, now we're lucky if you got 5 or 6 in the town.
No.
Yeah, they used to talk about people were quiet because we had the trouble was going on in the late 60s and 70s with they said, I don't know, they called it the gang wars, but and the code of silence, that to me was a sort of a myth. I don't think people talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, hanging around Kelly's when we were, wasn't in the 21 bracket yet, but I mean, how many times were some shooters going in and out and looking for different people with the little gang wars that used to happen.
Yeah.
And thank God they had the back door a lot because you'd see them coming across the street with a shotgun and say, But everybody it was great times growing up.
Everybody in the 60s was Bobby Orr brought out a lot of things for us with hockey. I think it was more then than it is now. I mean, we see a lot of kids now, but I think it was more prevalent. Every kid went to a different high school. We played against them in different high schools.
Well, as Father Smith used to say, there was, I think, like one time, there was 7 captains on different high schools.
Right.
And they were all from Charlestown, but different times.
Different sports. Yeah, you're right. Because we had tech, trade, English High, Brighton High, Latin, name them, and
Malden Catholic, BC.
And he said if they all stuck together, and if we had a Catholic high school in this town, they wouldn't have been beaten in the 60s or 70s if everybody played together.
Father Smith never got the credit he deserved for what he did for youth hockey. He was the original starter on it. He got us going with the CYO.
We used to have who was the priest from St. Francis who started the Hawks up?
So. The Hawks, yeah. But then he won it was Rescue Me.
He had Rescue Me. He had the Hawks. We used to play those guys from the one corner. We played them in hockey over the arena, and like I said, Tommy and I played for Charlestown High together, and very fortunate. We had 3 good years, very good run, but it was nice. The 60s were a very relaxed era, Tom. When did you get married?
I got married in 1970.
Well, you married in Charlestown?
Yeah, I married, who had lived, a block away from me. She lived in Monument Square.
So you're born and raised and still live in Charlestown?
Still live in Charlestown.
I always say to tell people it's a unique town. You couldn't get any better friends than we have. Our friends are lifelong friends. It's not just acquaintances.
No, Stevie Driscoll. I was godfather for his first daughter, and then I was best man for the second marriage. The first marriage you get married in England, but and we've been friends. We still communicate a lot.
Your wife, she come from a big family from Charlestown?
No, there was only three of them. So, they're all 1 year apart, the three of them. Diane was the oldest, then her brother Jackie's 1 year younger, and then her sister Donna.
Now, when you were hanging out at night, what corner did you really?
Most of the time I used to, when I started growing up, I'd be down Vic's.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a different crowd down there, Vic's.
Yeah.
What was that? That was a soda shop.
Yeah, well, that's where Sully's Pub is.
That's right, yeah.
But that was a great spot, very active.
Well, anything you want to add, Thomas?
No, I call myself very fortunate. When I get out in '68, I went on a fire department in '69.
Right.
And during '68, I worked in a Navy yard. So I didn't want to be stationed in Charlestown, so I was lucky enough to go to East Boston, and then I spent 32 years in the North End, which was great. But I still keep in contact with them. But
yeah,
Charlestown's a great city. I mean, people can't afford to move here now, but it was still a lot of fun, a lot of nice people.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Tommy and I also are brothers on the fire department.
Yeah.
Like I said, most of the guys growing up in Charlestown in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we all did about the same thing. Either you were a longshoreman, a fireman, or a policeman, or a hard worker, blue-collar worker. And, God, the times, what did you think of the 60s and 70s?
Oh, well, yeah, I had, when I came back, I didn't have problems, but I had some things wrong with me. When Mike got killed in '69, they started a scholarship, and next year was going to be the 50th year.
Yeah.
But the first 4 or 5 years that they started, I didn't want anything to do with them. I hit me too hard. You're talking about friendship. Mikey Quinn, when I get back from Vietnam, I was stationed at Quantico, Virginia, which is a Yardstick training site. They made me an MP. And Stevie was at Quantico with me, but he wasn't an MP. And he heard that Mikey was coming down for his summer camp, summer 2 weeks. Well, all the people in Quantico will all be Vietnam vets, so I talked to the head DI that does the thing. I said, can I get him out for a couple of hours? So Stevie and I, in my MP gear, went up, and I walked in the barracks. It scared the hell out of them. They thought I was arresting them. But we took him for a ride, and we tried to relax, try to give him a beer. No beer, no. You got to get me back. He was so conscious. I mean, it was just a small world. But I just want to pinpoint how great Charlestown is. It's the 50th anniversary of Mike dying next year. And we've given a lot of money to the youth of Charlestown. And we were so proud that the people still remember Mike and good things.
Well, I tell you, it's... I always say when I finish the segment, Tom, that I wouldn't change my 50s, 60s, or 70s for nobody. On my life. I think everybody in Charlestown, if there's a problem, it can be solved. But Charlestown to me is still unique, and I love the town. Like I said, I could win mega bucks for millions, and I'd still never move out of the town. People say you're crazy. You would. I said no, I would. I said, but it's the reasons why it's growing up with people like Tom and Mikey Quinn and all those kids that he mentioned. They're all still good friends, and that's the way it is back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Everybody we talk to is probably our age, and we're still very friendly with them. And this is what we'd like to tell people now. To keep the history alive of Charlestown, you've got to enjoy the town, get active in the town, and help the town out. When we have a problem, it can be solved. No one had any more problems than we did back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So with that, I just want to thank Tom,
thank you, Billy.
a good friend of mine. Thank you for this segment, and remember Charlestown, respect one another.